Hello, everyone. In my previous presentation, I introduced you to IPA, which is Interpretative Phenomenological Analysis, right? It's part of phenomenology. This means that you are capturing the experience of participants, but you go beyond just capturing the experience of participants. You want participants to share how they make sense of the experience so that you also make sense of the information that I have given you. And I provided you step by step how to analyze data using IPA. I gave you the 7 steps. And as you can see here, these are the steps that I mentioned. I'll put a link of my previous presentation here, so that you can get access to that part if you want to learn more about IPA before we focus on this aspect of the IPA. Now, if you plan to use NVivo, how can you follow the steps, the 7 steps, so that you'll be able to make sense of your data? This is what this presentation is all about. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you step by step how to use NVivo to make sense of your data if you are using interpretative phenomenological analysis. As you can see, I have my 5 transcripts here. I coded them. I coded each of them. For each of the transcripts, I develop emergent themes, as you can see here. And then I develop superordinate themes. So think about emergent themes as initial themes, and then superordinate themes will be called the main themes, right? Or overarching themes. You can give it any name that you want. The most important thing is that you code every transcript and then you develop themes and then you end up having the main themes here. So ST is superordinate theme. So I have the superordinate theme for participant 1. I have the same thing for participant 2. I have the same thing for participant 3. So this is what I'm going to show you step by step how to do that. But before I provide you this information, let's go through the strategies that you can choose from in terms of analyzing your qualitative data using IPA. So there are 3 main strategies that you can use, right? The first one is we call it the classic strategy. It's the original strategy. We call it individualized strategy. So the individual strategy is where you go through each of the transcripts, develop initial themes for them, and then develop main themes for each of the transcripts, right? The essence of doing that is to really understand each participant experience before you think about what is the overall experience across participants, right? Second one is called collective strategy. Think about it like you are using some of the principles behind thematic analysis, right? So you're going to go through all the transcripts, identify themes, right? After identifying themes for all the transcripts, then you move on to the next stage where you categorize the initial themes to develop superordinate themes or the main themes, right? So if you know how to do thematic analysis, this strategy is very similar to thematic analysis. The third strategy that you could use is called sequential accumulative strategy. So this is where you first start with one transcript, go through and develop initial themes, and then after that, you have to categorize the themes to develop superordinate themes. Then you go to the second transcript. As you are going to the second transcript, you are going to use the already developed themes or initial themes and superordinate themes. As you are going through, you may make a little bit of adjustment to the existing themes that you have developed based on the transcript. So as you are going through subsequent transcript, you are making adjustment to the initial themes and the overall themes that you are developing. It's called sequential because you want to finish the first transcript before you go to the next transcript, before you go to the next transcript. It's accumulative because you continue to make an adjustment to the themes as you are going through the transcript, right? So these are the 3 strategies that you could use. And let's go through each of them, and then you can decide which one is good for you. Each of them has its own strengths and weaknesses. The most important thing is to be aware of the strengths and weaknesses so that you choose the one that will be effective based on the data that you have and based on the data analysis software that you want to use. So which one do you want to choose? So let's start with the individualized one. If you are new to IPA, this one will be the best, right? Because this is the original way that you have to analyze your data using IPA. So if you have 3 to 6 transcripts, if you don't have a lot of transcript, this strategy will be good, right? Because you start with the first transcript, you complete the first transcript, develop initial themes, and then overall themes, which is the superordinate themes for each of the transcripts. This one is good if you want to really understand each individual experience before you think about what are the experience across the cases that you have. So this one is very useful. The only limitation here is labor intensive. It takes time and resources to do it because you have to go through each individual transcript, develop initial themes and also the main themes before you think about going to the next one. And after that, you can compare and then come up with overall themes. It takes time. Right. But if you want to gain the skill of analyzing data using IPA, this original strategy is the best. So let's think about the second strategy. So the second one is quite similar to thematic analysis because what you are doing is that you are going through the data to develop initial themes. And after that, you come back and categorize all the themes to have the overarching themes, or we call it superordinate themes. If you have 6 or more participants, or you have a lot of transcripts to work on, this strategy will be the best. But the only limitation is that you may have difficulty understanding individual experience first before you think about overall experience. But the results of the collective strategy will be similar to the result of the individualized. So this one is useful if you are using software to analyze your data, right? And if you have a large data. The last one that we want to talk about, if you have between 4 to 8 transcripts, then this one will be very helpful for you because what you're doing is that you are continuously updating the initial themes and superordinate themes as you go through the transcript, right? It's quite similar to using granite theory approach because you make adjustment to the initial themes as you see new evidence that you have, right? Using the subsequent evidence in the data to confirm the themes or make an adjustment to the themes, right? That's why it's called sequential accumulative, making adjustment to the themes as you continue to go through the data. And for this presentation, I'm going to limit myself to individualized strategy and also collective strategy. If you know these two, you can also figure out the third strategy, which is the sequential accumulative strategy. We're going to start the process and use NVivo to do the analysis. We're going to start first with the individualized strategy. So before we start, I just want to introduce you to the data that we are going to use. As you can see here, I have my one research question, and I want to capture how participants make sense of the experience. And then I have 5 participants, and these are the demographics that we have. I have 5 transcripts that I'm going to upload that information to NVivo. So let's start the process. So let's start a new project. So I'm going to click on NVivo 15. So this is what you're going to see when you click on NVivo. So we're going to start a new project. So you can click on a new project. You can give it a name title, but I'm just going to do BO individualized strategy. And I go to browse and I want to save it under desktop. Click on OK, and I go to create. So this is what you see. I want to skip to all and click on close here. So the first step is to upload all your transcripts. So you go to import, you go to files, and then look for the transcript. So let me look for my transcript. And then these are my 5 transcripts. I uploaded, click on open and click on import. So when you click on import, this is what you're going to see. You have all your transcripts. I can open one of them for you to see them and double click. Okay, so this is one of the transcripts. So let me close it. And then you could create cases for each of the transcripts. Cases are like files that you create for each of the transcripts so that if you want to connect demographic information to each of the transcripts, you'll be able to do that. It's not required to bring demographic information, but if you want to, you can do that. So first, let's create cases for each participant. So what I do, I click on the first one and click on Shift, press on the last one to select all of them. And then I go to Create As and I go to Cases and I click on OK. So when you do that and go to cases, you already created cases for them, right? Now you can also bring your demographic information. As I said, it's not required to bring your demographic information, but if you have it, you can bring that. You can bring it as an Excel spreadsheet. Let me show you how my demographic information looks like. I have it in Excel. So let me double click on it and open it. So as you can see here, these are my demographic information. I have all the 5 participants and their age, gender, years of experience, and ethnicity. If you want to bring this one, you have to arrange it this way. You always have to have the ID as first. You see the P1, P2, the same thing here, P1, P2, the same ID should be here. I go to classification and click on import classification sheet. I click on browse, and then I look for the demographic data. I double click on that and click on next. And make sure that you change this one from file classification to case classification. You click on next, and then click on as name and click on next. And you don't do anything here. You click on finish. So I've imported demographic information there, and it has been connected to participant transcript, right? So now I'm going to start a process. We are using IPA individualized strategy. How do you do it? So the first thing that you have to do is go to code. If you have only one research question, you can just create container for the one research question. If you have 2 research questions, you have to create containers for each of the research question. So what I'm going to do, I have one research question, so I'm going to create a container for the research question here, right click here and click on new code, and then bring the one research question, which is RQ1 experience of burnout. And also you can bring your research question here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy my research question and put it here under description, right? And make sure you check aggregate coding from children, you click on OK. And now you have created your container for your research question. If you have more than one, you can create more containers for your research question. And then what you have to do is you're going to create containers for each of the participants. Why do you do that? Because you're going to create codes, you're going to create themes, or we call it emergent themes and superordinate themes under each of the participants because you are using individualized strategy. So what you're going to do is I'm going to right click here, new code, and then I will type P1, check aggregate coding from children, click on OK, and do the same thing for the next one, new code, P2. So if you have 20 participants, you have to do this for each of the 20. So that's why I'm saying that individualized strategy, it takes a long time. So if you have a lot of participants, then you have to think about using a collective strategy, right? And I'm going to show you the collective strategy, but this time I'm showing the individualized one. So P1, P2, P3. Now we're gonna go to P4, right? Click here, new code, P4. And then the last one is P5, right? Now, when you finish them, you're going to start the coding process. You go to Files and double click on the first participant. And then you have to click on code to bring the containers here. So you have containers for each of the participants here. And I'm going to code participant P1 transcript into the participant P1 container. Create emergent themes for participant 1 under participant 1 container, right? And after that, I categorize the emergent themes to develop superordinate themes, right? So that's why I have all these here. But before you start, the first process of IPA is read, reread, and take notes, right? I have to emphasize on this one. It's very important for you to do that. The reason why you have to read and reread is that you want to understand every aspect of the experience, make sense of it before you start the coding process. Because each of the theme you're going to develop will be based on what participant has said earlier or would be based on the background. So holistically understanding participant information and their background is very important at the first stage. So that's why we emphasize on read and reread. And as you are reading and reread, you also have to take notes because at the end of the day, you want to address your research question, right? Which is the how they make sense of the experience. So when you're going through, and if you identify anything that is significant, you can write about your understanding of that information. That will help you to develop themes in a later step, right? So how are you going to take your notes? You're going to use a function called annotation. So you see here, when you select, you see new annotation, right? So you can use annotation to do that. I'm going to show you that. So imagine we are reading, and this is participant one. And this part is also giving us information how she became interested in medicine. She became interested in medicine when she observed the parent taking care of patients, right? And then also seeing the positive impact the parents are having the lives of the patients, how the parents are taking care of the patient, that caused the person to be interested in medicine. So when you are reading this one, first you have to think about what is participant telling me, right? Participant want to show me that her interest in medicine was based on what the parent was doing in a healthcare, providing quality support to the elderly patients, right? Taking care of them, and also the passion. So now I have an idea about what participant is telling me. What information do I have to keep here so that it will help me in the later time for me to do the coding, developing emergent themes? If you think this information is important, you can write your thoughts concerning what you are saying. Not just your thoughts, but the meaning that you are extracting from this evidence that you found here. That may indirectly or directly link to the experience of burnout, right? So, upon reading this and thinking about who is telling me this information, this is what my thoughts are. So, I'm going to show you my thoughts. So, you select this part. So, let me select this one and then right click on it and go to New Annotation. I click on that and then I type my thought. So, you see my top here? So this is my thought. Medicine entered through witnessing maternal care, relational and familiar, not clinical, emotional language. I loved signals that impact on others was original motivation. So you see here that this is my understanding or my interpretation of this information. Right. And I think this one may be very important when I go to the next stage. So, what we are doing is that you are making sure that you understand important information participants are saying. What is important information? Any information that can directly or indirectly address your research question, helping you to understand participant experience, how they make sense of experience. That information is important. So you see here, I'm asking the participant, do you experience burnout or stress at workplace? And the participant say, yes, many physicians do as well. So you see how the participant responded. she's not only saying that, yes, I experience it, she is also including many physicians. So he also is trying to say that it is prominent among a lot of physicians. And I think that is the emphasis of many physicians do as well is very important. Say that it's not only me, right? But other people. So here too, you can also write about your understanding of that information. So let me show you my understanding of this one. So you select that, right click here, go to new annotation, and then put your understanding there. So this is my understanding. So it's like shifting from individual kind of experience to a collective experience. That is what this one is emphasizing on. So you see the pattern now, you go through the data, you identify information that is significant, you make sure that you understand what participant is telling you, and then you come up with your own understanding. And here you have to be very careful. We have a term called bracketing. So bracketing is setting aside your preconceived ideas, expectations, your background so that they will not overly influence how you are making sense of the data. So in order to practice bracketing, you have to identify any biases that you have and set them aside. You may use some of your background to make sense, but I think that being aware and trying to make sure that they will not overly influence how you are making sense is very important. Another strategy is that always ask yourself, what is participant telling me? Right. Because you always want to understand what the participant is telling you before you interpret that information. So it's very important for you to go through these steps. And also, you can share your experience in a description session for me so that people will also learn from you. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. It goes a long way to help to make good videos, to help us to learn, and also for a lot of people to benefit from this lecture. So you do the same thing. So I'm going to the next one. Oh, I think this information is also part of the experience of burnout, right? What is the person telling me? I think the person is telling me that spending long time working and also doing a lot of clinical administrative tasks also causes burnout, right? So that's what the person is telling me. And based on that, you can also write something similar to what I have here. Let me bring that information. So I select that, right click, new annotation, and then I bring this annotation here. So as you can see, I have all my annotation here, right? The question is, do you have to write annotations for each of the significant information? No, you don't have to, right? But if any idea comes into your mind that is your interpretation of the information, that's what you have to do. Right. So that's how you have to do. You have to go through all the transcripts, identify information that is significant. And if you have some interpretations or information that you want to keep, that will help you to create emergent themes. Then you have to write something, right? So imagine I go through everything, read and reread, and I was able to write about my annotations. So whenever you open that document, your annotations will be here for you to review, and that can also help you to go through the process. So let's imagine that I finish with the annotation for the first participant. What next? So the next step is to start the coding process, right? After going through and taking some notes, right? So let's start with the coding process. Now, the next stage is to develop emergent themes for participant one. So let's say this one is important. Okay, it talks about how she became interested. So maybe this is important. What do you have to do next? You can look at the notes that you have collected here, right? And see that will give you the idea about a label or a theme that you have to come up with. A theme can be a phrase representing your understanding of the significant information that you have identified. And it can be in between 2 to 5 words, right? It can go a little bit beyond, but trying to work around 2 to 5 words. So for this one, you decide on a theme that you want to represent this one. When you decide, you right click here and go to code selection, right? Or you can just right click on P1, new code, and then bring the code here. So based on this information, my label or the theme will be called relational vocational identity, right? So it best represents participant information that they gave me. This is my understanding of that. It's not required, but you can also put a description here. What do you mean by relational vocational identity, right? So you can say this code represents participant expression about the way the parent take care of their patient, influence and interest to become a physician, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, but it just something that will help you to remember this information. But as I said, it's not required. By looking at it, if you know the meaning of it, that's fine. But if you want to keep some record of how this information represents, you can define that here. And then when you finish, you can check aggregate coding from children if you want to, and click on OK. And then you see that I have that information here. I've created a container under research question 1. Now I'm going to select and drag and drop this information. So let me select that. And now I'm dragging and dropping it into this container. Then I go to the next one, right? So the next one is I love seeing the difference she made in their lives, right? So she's talking about the parent, the way that they take care of the patient. He just really like and I appreciate that, right? So this one might be very important because it talks about she became interested in medicine, right? So if this one is significant, you right click here and new code, bring the theme right here and you define. So the theme here is care as inherited calling. And then you define what you mean by that if you want to, and then you check aggregate coding from children and click on OK. And then you can drag and drop that information into that container. As you can see, we are working on only participant 1. You have to finish everything for participant 1 before we go to participant 2. The same way you go to the next one. So this is a place that is the participant said, yes, and many physicians do as well. So if you decide that this is significant and you have decided the meaning and the label for that meaning, you right click on P1 and then bring that information here. So this one is burnout as a collective experience, right? The reason why I chose this theme is that the participant is indirectly telling us the underlying meaning of this is that she's indirectly telling us that I'm not the only person that experienced burnout. There are many physicians like me that experience burnout. So he's presenting burnout as a collective experience, not individual experience, right? And I think that is what the person is emphasizing on. And then you can define it if you want to check aggregate coding from children, you click on OK, and then you can drag and drop that information in there. Let's continue. So you go to the next one. The next one is long hours. You see the place that says long hours and numerous clinical and administrative tasks. So what is the person telling us, right? What is the experience of participants? When you look at this one, what's the meaning the participant want to bring out? So when you decide, you right click on participant 1, new code, and the meaning is that they see burnout as workload overload, right? That's why they see the experience of burnout because when they have a lot of work to do and it's too much for them to do, they can have burnout. So you click on that and then you can drag and drop that information into the container. So that's how you're going to do, right? You go through, identify information that are significant, and then extract the meaning, and then develop a phrase that is the theme, and you create a theme and put it under their respective participant container. Let's assume that this information is also talking about burnout as workload overload. I just select and drag and drop it into that container. Right. So you only create a new container when the existing quotation doesn't have any link to the existing theme that you have, then you have to create a new theme. So you see the strategy now. Because if you don't do that, then you end up having a lot of themes, right? If you do it only one quotation is to one theme, then you're going to have a lot of theme. But if you use this principle of, I will create a new code or a new theme when the existing quotation has nothing to do with the existing themes, then that approach will be helpful so that you can drop some of the information into some of the existing containers that you have here. So that's how the process is going to be. You go through, identify information that are significant, and then you'll be able to develop things, right? So let me show you the outcome. So you can see that here I go to codes and then click on the plus sign behind P1. So these are the emergent themes that I've created. So you can see here that if it's one, this means that it's from one file. So it's from one file because it's from only participant P1 file. And then you can see here that 17 references. This is 17 quotation that was extracted. And for each of the themes that we have here, we have two quotations connected to this one. We have one quotation connected to this one. If you want to know the quotation, you can just double click on it and see that you see the two quotations that was extracted connected to that theme called burnout as collective experience. So let me cancel it and come back here. So this is what I have for you for P1. You're going to do the same thing for P2, P3, P4, P5, the same process. You're going to have themes for each of them. And then you move to the next stage, which is where you develop superordinate themes, or we call it overall themes, right? Or overarching themes. Any name that you give is the higher level themes compared to the initial themes that you have here. How do you do that? Technically, what you are doing is that you are trying to group the themes that have something in common and then put them together and label that group as the overarching theme, right? Does it make sense? I'll show you the step by step, but I just want you to understand. So you are trying to group similar emergent teams to form superordinate teams. So let's go back to NVivo. So now what you have to do is that we're going to create container, the superordinate themes containers. Initially, you can create about 5 and see. You can create more if you want to. The superordinate themes can be less than 5 or more than 5, depending on the similarities, the number of groups that you're going to have, right? So for now, what you can do is that you right click on the P1. Remember, it's not this place where you go to file and click on P1. We are under code. So you right click on P1, click on new code, and here you can, in parentheses, you can say S, that's super ordinate theme 1, and then close it. Check aggregate coding from children, right? And then you're gonna do that 5 times. ST, ST4, ST5. Okay, so now we have created superordinate themes, but we don't have the labels yet. We just have to sort them first, right? So what you have to do is that you can say that, okay, let's start with teams that have things in common that we can bring them together, right? So care as inherited calling can be put in the first overarching theme. And then you look, okay, so what can be connected to this theme, which is called care as inherited calling? Which one can be linked to that? I think there's a place, physician-patient identity conflict, right? So that could be also add to this one. So, and then you also bring relational, vocational identity. So all of them are talking about identity, right? So that's why we are putting them here. And then self-neglect in caregiving, I bring that here. Right. Now you can continue to sort them. You can always change your mind. You can decide, okay, I think this one doesn't really cannot be part of this group. Let me bring it here. It's better to bring it this group. You can always move things around, right? You have to be flexible at this stage. And then we can also look at burnout as a collective experience. I think it doesn't belong to the first overarching theme, so you can put it in the second one. So if it doesn't belong there, you can put it in the one here, right? And then the next one is resilience as force obligation. If it has any relationship with this one, you can bring it here, right? The strategy here is that if you feel or you think that some of the themes have something in common, you can put them together. And then after that, you can label those groups. So that's the only strategy here, right? What do they have in common? What is the underlying meaning that can bring them together? And that's what I'm doing now. So burnout as overload, I think that can be in ST3 there. And then dwell, clinical, and administrative burden can also be that too, because it talks about workload overload, fatigue driven. That one can also come here. And the next one is work-life imbalance, can also come here. And then now distracting inner peace can be in the fourth group. So it looks like we don't need a fifth group, so you can right-click and delete it, right? We have grouped them into four groups. Now, what you have to do is look at the content or the themes here, and then based on the meaning here, what do they have in common? Then that will help you to give the name to the first ordinate theme. So if you have the name, you right click on it and go to code properties and just put that name here, right? At this time, you can remove the one if you want. You don't have to, but you can remove the one from ST. So you're going to be ST and identity caught between competing roles, right? And then you can define what you mean by that. What is the meaning of this? What is the definition of this thing? So that's what you're going to do. Look at the content and then see what best represents what label do you want to have to give to this one. The second one, the label can be something like a shared professional endurance. Right click here, you go to code properties, and then you can bring the label here. Then you can take off this, click on OK, and then we go to the next one, which is the third. So you right click here, you go to code properties, and then you bring that information here, burnout as a structural overload. That's the one that best represents this group of themes. And then you do the last one. So let's do the last one. You right click here, go to code properties, and then you can bring that information here, and then you click on OK. So you see how I've been able to group all of them and then label them. So at this point, we are just think about it as a sorting process. You are grouping them, you are sorting them, right? You are trying as much as possible to reduce the data, but at the same time maintaining the meaning that you are extracting from the data, right? So at the end of the day, we have four overarching themes, which is called superordinate themes, addressing the research question and also representing information that I extracted from participant one. I did the same thing for participant two. I have four here, and these are the emerging themes under this superordinate theme. So the same thing, 3 and 4, 5. As you can see here, this is just a demonstration. You can see that all the superordinate things are 4. It can be 5, it can be 4, it can be 3. Some can be 3, some can be 4. The most important thing is that you are following the steps. So now we have finished the first main stage of the process. Now we know individual experiences, right? Using individualized process. But we have to go to the next stage, which is the final stage, right? Where we have to categorize all these main themes so that we can have overall themes across participants. So it's like these are the things for each of the participants. Let me compare and group the themes. Then I'll have overall theme that cut across 5 participants that best represent the experience of the participants, right? So that is the final thing. It takes time, but I think understanding the principle or the steps will really help you to accomplish your goal. So the next step is to develop the main overarching themes, right? That cut across the cases that you have. But before you do it, I would suggest that you save this project, right? And copy this project so that you have this information there and you can go back to reference it, right? Because if you don't do that, you may lose all this information because what we're going to do is that we're going to remove all the innate themes from each of the participants and bring them as one group so that we can evaluate and do the sorting or grouping based on similarities. So I recommend that if you want to keep this information and work on a second project that you'll be able to do the final step, right? So I suggest is that you click on File, you go to Copy Project, and then you go to Browse. You look for a place to save this project and then can give it any name that you want. I can say BO, any name that you want that you remember. You can say final step. So because this is what you're going to work on in terms of the steps. And then click on Save and click on OK. Then you can close this one so that that information will be saved. And we go and open the place that we put the new copy, the one that we just copied. So the copy version is the one that I'm opening now so that when I make changes, I still have the original steps or original output there for me. So I go to quotes, and as you can see, I have the same thing here. But this time, what you're going to do is that we're going to select all the superordinate team here, right? And drag it into the research question, right? So I selected all of them, drag them into the research question. I finished with P1. Let me go to P2. I select all of them, drop it into the research question. So you see here that I put them into everything in one group, move them from the participant container, and I can delete that because I don't need it anymore, right? Now, the next step is to develop master themes. So you see here that we started with emergent themes, right? And we tried to categorize the emergent themes based on similarities to develop superordinate themes for each of the participants. Now we have all the superordinate themes here. Then what we have to do is to develop master themes by grouping the superordinate themes. And how do we do that? Let me show you the PowerPoint again. Think about it this way. We are trying to look into what are the superordinating that overlaps, right? Which is the themes that overlaps will be called the convergent themes, right? And the themes that are a little bit different from each other is the divergent themes, right? But don't be worried about these two concepts per se. What you're doing is that just look at the similarities across the groups of themes and see whether you can group them based on the similarities. And then the ones that cannot be grouped, that's the one that are called divergent themes. We can look at underlying concept that cut across the themes, and then that will be the master themes, and that will be done later. But let's go through the process so that you understand the practical way of dealing with this issue. Right. So the next process, the same thing that we did. You right click here, new code, right? And then in parentheses, you got an MT1. MT is master themes, master theme one. And then we check aggregate coding from children. We can create about 5 for now. It can be more than 5, but you can create 5 for now. And if you need more, you can create more. So this one, the MT2. So technically, you are trying to sort the superordinate themes, right? And then lastly, MT5. master theme 5. Now let's start the process, right? You can start any way that you want. So let me start. I've already grouped them, so let me show you what I did. I put this one here. This one is about burnout as a structural overload. So let's see overload and volume. So you see they have something in common. It's about the amount of workload, right? And also the time, right? They have something in common. We also have credibility and identity. So something about credibility. See, okay, burnout from credibility and identity strain. When you are dragging and dropping, you have to be very careful. You have to bring the cursor here and then drag and drop it. There's another way of doing it instead of drag and drop. So let's look for another one here. And then if you want to put it in MT1, you right click here and click on cut and then right click here and paste, right? So that that information will be here. So the next one is impossible external expectations. Impossible external expectation is also here. I right click and cut and right click here and paste. So that's what you're doing. You are trying to identify common themes and put them together to form the master theme. So this one also will come to the second one. So let's go to the third one. So all these, I'm focusing on convergent themes that have things in common, right? And so you have to do the convergence first so that things will be easy. The difficult side is the divergent, the team that doesn't have obvious commonalities among them. And then you can also look at what best strategies do you want to use to help you combine them. And the next one is relationship as vocational anchor and recovery. You cut and right click here and paste. So that's what you're going to do. So I think we finished with that. Now, when you finish all the convergent one that is easy for you to group, the one here is divergent. They don't have an obvious commonalities among them, right? So what do you have to do? You have to think about what can bring them together. All these different one. The first one is talking about autonomy and mindset protection. And this one is burnout resolved through experience and then knowledge as antidote to inadequacy. And the last one is medicine as inseparable vocation. So ask yourself, what is common among this one? I see autonomy, experience, and knowledge, right? It's like when you have autonomy, you'll be able to prevent yourself from being burnout. And then when you are knowledgeable too, right? And so these you think through and see, okay, what will bring them together? And what may bring them together is something related to agency, autonomy as burnout protection. If you have agency and if you have agency, so the agency is more about being able to make decisions independently, right? And autonomy is also related to having control over the situation and knowledgeable about what you are doing. You have so much experience that will reduce burnout, right? So I think you can bring all of them together. And then when you are talking about this theme, you can bring all these dimensions, right? So you see what I mean? It's not easy to put them together, but I think they are talking more about having control over what you are doing and having experience and having a needed skill will positively affect the reduction of burnout, right? And I think that is what they want to bring out, right? And then, so what you're gonna do is I can put them into one container. Sometimes you can put them to more than one container, but this one you can put them into one container. So I'll put them in the last container, which is MT5. cut and then paste. And then I'll be able to label it. So the next step is to label it. So let's label the divergent one first. I right click and go to code properties. And this is what you're going to do. Just to remind you, remove the 5 and write D. D means divergence, right? So MTD, M for team. So master team D, divergent. And then what label do you want to give to this one? Something like what I have here. Agency and autonomy as burnout protection, right? And I think that brings all of the 5 issues together. And when you are talking about that, you can also bring the dimensions, right? All these areas related to agencies, also lack of knowledge and also inadequacy, all these come together. You can point out the uniqueness of this team by mentioning that. I'll go ahead and check aggregate coding from children and click on OK. So we have a name for the divergent. So let's think about what's the next one. Let's start with the MT one. And you look at the content and then see the best name for that. The best name that I came up with is called Burnout as Extremely Imposed and Systematic, right? And then you see C means that convergent, right? So burnout as extremely imposed and systematic. And then you can also define what you mean by that and click on OK. So let's go to the next one, which is the 2. What is serious content? Okay, so burnout as a younger physician burning. Okay. So you look at all these things and then you see what level do you want to give to it. So the level is about career and how the career also shape the meaning of burnout. So I right click here, I go to code properties, and then I bring my label representing all the themes under that. And then I go to the next one. So that's how we're going to do the process. So the label I'm going to give to this one is called Medicine as Relational and Care Vocation, right? And then click on OK. And then let's do the last one. This is all about things that you have to do to fight against burnout. So you right click here, go to code properties, and then bring your label here. And then you click on OK. So you see here that I have created my master themes across participants, right? And that's what you can do. And you can easily determine who is linked to what theme. How do you do that? Although I've removed the participant that are linked, I can go to explore, go to matrix coding query, and then I click on the plus sign here. I click on select. I select all the transcripts and I click on OK. I go to this here. I click on the first option, go to quotes, plus sign. I check all the master themes, click on OK, and then run query. This one will help you to know who is linked to what. So I can see that P1 is linked to the first theme, the second, the third. Let me go to the other side here. He links to all the team except the last one, the agency and autonomy as burnout protection, right? Because it's 0. So the numbers here is the number of significant information that was extracted or the number of quotations that were extracted from the transcript. So 2 quotations were extracted from the transcript linked to this team. And you can double click here and then look for the quotation. So you see that these are the 2 quotations from participant P1. So let's go back here. And 0 means that there's no quotation that was extracted from P3 to this one. So P3 that is not linked to the theme, but it's linked to the second, not linked to the third, fourth, linked to the fourth, fifth, right? So 0 means that there's no connection between the participant and the theme that you have. Based on this one, you can also tell individual stories, right? And then so the P1 individual story is this one, and then excluding the last theme. But my P4 is also linked to 1, 2, 3, but not the fourth one. and then link to the last one, right? So you can also see individual stories be within the overall themes, right, by doing the matrix code inquiry. Another thing that you can go to create framework matrix, and then you can say that master themes for all participants, right? And then go to role, select. Here you select all the cases. Without creating cases for participants, you cannot do this one, right? So you have to make sure that you go to file, right click on each of the transcript and then create cases. At the beginning, you have to create cases before you can use this framework matrix. So you see the case for each participant, you click on OK, and then you go to column, you select and click on plus sign and select all the master themes. You click on OK. And then what you're gonna do is that you can click on OK here, and then it will create this one for you, this table, the framework metrics table. And then you can right click on the framework metrics table here, and then you right click on the name here, master theme. You right click here and you can click on undock to bring out the table for you to see the whole table, and then click on retrieve except here, and it will retrieve all the quotation linked to each of the participants under each of the master themes, right? So it's quite similar to the what we got from framework metric, but the difference is that this one gives you the exact quotation that was extracted, right? So as you can see here, for P1, these are the two quotations, another two quotations, and this is one, two, three, four quotations, and one, two, three quotations, and no quotation here. So this one also could be helpful for you to see how participants are linked to each of the master theme. You can also export it if you want. Right click here to export, right? So this is all about the individualized strategy. As you can see, it takes, if you want to take this strategy, is the best strategy, but the only limitation is that it takes time, right? So this is what I have for you. If you have any question, you can put in the comment section. I hope that this one was helpful. I know it's very long, but I just want you to get the basic understanding of using NVivo to help you to make sense of your data if you are using IPA. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. It goes a long way to help in making good videos for you and your colleagues. Thank you for your time.